Jambo, Jambo. In Swahili, that's slang for hey, how you doing? And it's what we woke up to almost every morning in Tanzania. It's what we were greeted by when we arrived at every tented camp and lodge, along with cool tea and warm towels. I spent 2 weeks in Africa this summer. Talk about a world away. 8,600 miles from my home in Nebraska to Arusha. This was my first international trip, and honestly, I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea how much I would feel connected to the gorgeous and diverse landscape, to the incredible wildlife, and especially to the beautiful, warm people in Tanzania. I tell you a lot of stories, but I especially want to tell you this one. Because as I've returned home and people have asked about my trip, I've said that the most moving part of the experience was what I'd like to share with you through these photos. I'll be honest, before I left for Tanzania, I read on the itinerary that we were going to tour a water filtration factory, and I remember thinking, okay, wonder what that's about. Little did I understand the plight of almost 50% of Tanzania's population, their lack of safe drinking water, and that there was such an amazingly simple and inexpensive solution. Everywhere we went, our guides said, don't drink the water. In fact, every place we stayed left bottles of water by the sink so we could brush our teeth and clean our toothbrushes. We were just there for 2 weeks, but that's the world that Tanzanians live in and day out. The statistics are really staggering. Almost half of the population in Tanzania, 20.2 million people, don't have access to safe drinking water. They lose over 3,000 children each year to diarrhea from unsafe water and poor sanitation. And they lose almost 12% of their babies. And 88% of those deaths are attributed to waterborne diseases. The factory we toured, Safe Water Ceramics of East Africa, really was a little hole-in-the-wall business in the city of Arusha. Since 2008, their mission has been to provide safe drinking water for the people of Tanzania. Originally, Safe Water Ceramics was a collaborative project based on the work of Tracy Hawkins, an American, and Mr. Kim, a Tanzanian, who patented a design that combines clay, sawdust, and silver into a ceramic filter that removes bacteria and transforms dirty water into clean water. I really thought the process for creating these filters was pretty ingenious. Safari Lucas, who's been an employee since 2012, showed us how he took a hunk of clay, put it on top of the mold, then used a machine that they built called a presser that works with a manual hydraulic jack to create each filter. The sawdust is a combustible material, so when it's fired, it burns up and creates little holes in the pot so that water can flow through. And the silver, when fired, creates an almost charcoal-like layer that filters out the bacteria. Mr. Kim's daughter Miriam explained that once the filters are formed, they sit on the shelves to dry for 2 weeks, and then they're fired in the kiln for 24 hours. Miriam explained that once the filters are fired, they go through 2 tests for bacteria and water flow. These filters remove 99.9% of the bacteria in dirty water and produce up to 3 liters of clean water every hour. You can see in these photos the bucket that houses the filter, and I think what blew us away most was the contrast between the dirty water and the clean water. Miriam showed us what went into the bucket and poured the clean water and drank it. What an amazing small business that began as a pottery shop and ended up as Safe Water Ceramics of East Africa. And in 2015 was awarded a global award in the water category for its sustainable, life-saving water treatment design. After our tour was completed, we had the opportunity to donate just $40 to buy a filter for a family. And it was pretty much a no-brainer for all of us. We purchased 13 and left, and honestly, I thought that was the end of it, until the next morning when we walked out of our lodge and noticed the filters sitting on the steps. Safe Water Ceramics had delivered them, and our guides were packing them into our bush vehicles so we could distribute them. I was really touched by our tour and the opportunity to donate a water filter. But metaphorically speaking, that was just the appetizer. As we headed down the highway that morning, Lube, our guide, who's a native Tanzanian, was paying close attention. There were a lot of women and children walking along the shoulders of the road, carrying buckets. Pretty soon he turned off, and it was a local well where everyone was congregated. We began to unload the brightly colored buckets, and we got a few stares. Lube, in their language, explained to them what the buckets were and showed them pictures contrasting the clean water and the dirty water. Everybody was curious about these gifts we brought them, including the beautiful children. Lube explained to the women that these buckets, if taken care of, will last at least 5 years. Wow, what a simple concept and inexpensive gift, yet life-changing for families in Tanzania who live on just $2 a day. Every filter comes with instructions in Swahili and a cleaning brush. And here Lube was explaining how to use and take care of the filters. That morning we gave away 10 water filters. And when we got back in the bush vehicle, Lube said there was one bachelor in the group. And he said, I'm pretty sure that he understood everything that I was saying, and if those women need any help, he will help them. And he said, you know what he said to me? When I showed him the pictures of the clean and the dirty water, he said, how can this be? It's a miracle. Whew. I thought, wow, $40 is chump change to some of us. But in Tanzania, it can buy a miracle. We had 3 ceramic filters left, and the next morning, as we were driving down the highway, Lube noticed a young woman on a bicycle carrying water jugs. As she turned off the road, Lube turned off next to her, rolled down his window, and in Swahili asked where she was going to fetch water. She led us to the local watering hole. There are no words to describe how stunned we were when we rounded the corner and saw this pond. How dirty and filthy it was, and all of the cattle dung that was along the banks. And this is where they come for drinking water. Our guides Lube and Goodluck explained to the 3 women what the water filter was and how to use it and how to clean it. This woman in the green and gold was so animated and so engaged, and it was clear that she wanted to make sure that she understood the instructions. What this picture doesn't show is a very sweet exchange between 2 women from very different cultures who don't speak each other's language, who somehow connected that they are both grandmothers. In fact, our traveler shared pictures of her granddaughter. She gave this woman the last of the 13 filters, and I think her smile says it all. These 3 women left the pond that day with simple $40 ceramic filters that have the potential to provide safe and clean drinking water for their families for the next 5 years. And we left profoundly touched with full hearts, so very grateful for the opportunity to help. We spent time mostly with people from the Maasai tribe. They're a warm, generous, incredibly hardworking, happy, and a proud people. Though they live without the basic comforts we know, without transportation, without electricity, and without plumbing, without clean water. Clean water is a necessity that obviously I've always taken for granted. A whole host of physical problems comes from drinking dirty and contaminated water, and I was so moved to see this firsthand. When I returned home, I ran across a quote. It reads, "From the moment you first touch the native soil in Tanzania, you'll feel connected to the land, animals, and people, unlike any others on this planet." It's true. I tell people I left a part of my heart in Tanzania. When I posted photos about this experience on Facebook, a number of people asked, "How can I help?" Here's the answer to that question. Buy a bucket, or 2, or 3, or a half a bucket. A $40 donation buys a filter for a family that will provide safe, clean drinking water for at least 5 years. Look, I know there's a lot of needs in this world, and our resources are limited. And I know that Africa is a world away, but the need is great, and I saw that firsthand. So I've committed to doing what I can to help these families. I'm reminded of that verse, "To whom much has been given, much will be required." Perhaps this is one small thing that I can do to give back. If you're moved by this story, please feel free to join me and make a donation. I'm collaborating with our trip leader, Lube, who has a huge heart and has promised to personally deliver the water filters donated through this fundraiser. Trust me, your donation can make a life-saving difference. And as they say in Swahili, asante sana. Thank you very much. Please feel free to contact me through my project email, africasafewaterproject@gmail.com, or you may donate directly through the PayPal link on the project website. And again, with deep gratitude from the bottom of my heart, asante sana.